I want to say thank you again for coming to this wonderful program, Voices of Japanese American Incarceration. It is in partnership with our partners at the USC Shinso Ito Center, who have been such wonderful partners through so many years, and we're really grateful to be putting on this program today with them. I want to say a special welcome and thank you to Floyd Morey, who is on our Board of Governors here at JANM, and we are really grateful for his support and his presence here today. Yes, thank you. And I also want to say a special thank you to all of our JANM members who are here today. Your support really is what allows us to keep putting on programming like this. Seeing all those shiny stickers out there really means a lot to us. And if you're interested in membership, you can head over in the museum lobby and grab some information, or visit our front desk or our website. We are also partnering with the Shinso Ito Center on a current exhibition that's open for one more week. It's Sutra and Bible, a really beautiful exploration of religion in the World War II concentration camps. And if you haven't gotten a chance to check that out, it closes on February 19th. So please head over there after the program or come along this week or next weekend to make sure you catch that exhibition before it closes. And I think that's about it, but thank you so much, and I want to give a special thank you to all the staff at the Shinso Ito Center, and of course Susan Kamei for all her work with this program. So with that, we're going to start, and I would love to welcome Gail Inns of Celadon Arts, who will be walking us through the art framing this event today. So with that, I'm going to start the program and welcome Gail to the stage.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm delighted to be here representing Celadon Arts, a nonprofit organization which presents contemporary art exhibitions that build community relations and awareness of social issues. The images of art featured in today's program are part of the exhibition Resilience, a Sansei Sense of Legacy that has embarked on a 5-year tour throughout the United States. Each of the 8 exhibition artists is a third-generation Japanese American whose family endured the hardships of the unconstitutional wartime incarceration. Their works interpret the impact that Executive Order 9066 had upon their grandparents, the immigrant Issei generation, upon their parents, the American-born Nisei generation, and upon themselves as part of the Sansei generation, seeking to understand the traumatic legacy of the incarceration and to relate to the emotions that the elders kept to themselves. The artists draw upon Japanese art forms, reference Japanese cultural practices, and incorporate Western aesthetics and artistic techniques. You'll see representations of confinement and detention, separation and alienation, and pain and sorrow, as well as searches for identity and meaning. These Sansei descendants need to capture and memorialize defining episodes in their family members and shine a light on that which would otherwise be lost. The first image is by Jerry Takegawa, titled EO 9066. Takegawa has created a collection of collages in which he pieces together diffusely focused historical photographs, artifacts, natural items such as twigs, pebbles, ginkgo leaves, and pine needles that evoke traditional Japanese motifs, with words and phrases that testify to the tragic reality of the incarceration. Throughout his art, Jerry Takegawa confronts the racism perpetuated on his family. As co-curators of this exhibition, we hope that the works will serve as a catalyst for change on issues of racism, hysteria, and economic exploitation. Naomi Shintani's flag It's a flag made with wood she gathered with her father after attending a pilgrimage to the Tule Lake concentration center, where her father was imprisoned as a teenager. In describing her work, Pledge Allegiance, Shintani says, the phrase, with liberty and justice for all, rang hollow when the U.S. government forced the unconstitutional imprisonment of 120,000 men, women, and children of Japanese ancestry into 10 concentration camps.
Mitsuru Mits Koshiyama, incarcerated, age 18, Santa Anita Assembly Center, Heart Mountain Relocation Center, McNeil Island Federal Penitentiary. My parents came to America in the early 1900s. I think they would have become citizens if they were accepted. They had no plans to go back to Japan. Why would they come to a strange country if they had, against all odds, if they weren't coming here to better themselves and their children? But all the laws were made to keep them aliens in this society. We had no ties to Japan. Because of discrimination, we hated everything Japanese. I used to tell my mother, why can't we have bread like everyone else? Bacon, eggs in the morning? Why do we have to eat rice? Why do you have to read the Japanese paper? Why do I have to be foreign? Mitsuo Mits Usui, incarcerated, age 25, Santa Anita Assembly Center, Granada Amachi Relocation Center. I was attending St. Mary's Episcopal Church on Sunday morning that war broke out. When I reached home later that day, I found my mother in hysterics, crying and trying to pick up after the FBI had searched the house. They took Papa, Mama shouted. They chained him and numbered him like an animal. Minoru Min Tamaki, incarcerated, age 24, Tanfran Assembly Center, Topaz Relocation Center. I remember yanking our pictures from our family album and burning them. We removed all Japanese calligraphy hanging from our walls, even though we could not read them. In short, we tried to deny our very culture and origins. Suekosu Kunitomi Embry, incarcerated, age 19. After the president signed Executive Order 9066, we had all these meetings in Little Tokyo. I went to one of them. There were some people who wanted to protest and others who wanted to wait and see what the government was going to do. There was a big debate over whether we should go quietly and cooperate with the government or whether everybody should just go on their own wherever they could. Lieutenant General John L. DeWitt, commanding U.S. Army. Instructions to all persons of Japanese ancestry. All persons, both alien and non-alien, will be evacuated from the above designated area. The size and number of packages is limited to that which can be carried by the individual or family group. Mary Tsuruko Dakusaku Tsukamoto, incarcerated, age 27. One Issei, Mr. Iwasa, committed suicide.
Hiroshi Kamei, incarcerated, age 14. On the day before the posted evacuation date, there was a line of cars in our driveway extending out about another 200 yards in both directions, waiting their turn to come to our house to see what they could get from us for a small fraction of its worth or nothing. Most of the people were strangers, but some were people we thought were our friends. One man wanted to buy our pickup truck. My father had just spent $125 for a new set of tires and tubes and a brand new battery. Our friend bought, and I use the words friend and bought facetiously, the machine we used to spray crops for $15. We had only a few weeks earlier purchased it for about $100. The man told my father that he might as well take the $15 or else he would be back the next day and pick it up for nothing.
Artist Tom Nakashima modeled his work, Barriers Against the Wind, after a traditional Japanese folding screen. In the panel on the far left, Japan's rising sun and the U.S. Stars and Stripes represents the dilemma that the young Nisei men faced being identified as either loyal or disloyal. In the panel second from the right, he depicts the ground zero target of the Nagasaki and Hiroshima bombings because in 1945, both his childhood friends and enemies alike thought his last name was a combination of those two cities. The panel on the far right represents an ironic notion of sanctuary. His Issei forebears did not find sanctuary on our floors, on our shores in American ideals, but rather in unjust imprisonment to desolate, isolated environments. While detained at the temporary facility known as Camp Harmony Assembly Center, Tom's uncle, Ted Nakashima, wrote an article, Concentration Camps American Style, published in the New Republic. As a consequence of writing this article, Ted Nakashima and his wife were sent to Tule Lake War Relocation Authority Camp, a high-security prison with steel cages for holding those considered to be troublemakers in solitary confinement. It is possible that Ted was confined to such a cage, and Tom depicts it in the panel second from the left. In that article, Ted Nakashima wrote, "What really hurts most is the constant reference to us as Japs. Japs are the guys we are fighting. We are on this side, and we want to help."
My name's Chad Cannon. I'm a composer and neighbor of Susan. I wrote this piece, Citizen 13660 Vignettes, for clarinet and string quartet in 2014. And actually, I had the idea for the piece. I was commissioned by a Sansei violinist in the Bay Area named Matthew Oshida to write a piece for his quintet. And I decided to come visit this museum to just learn what it was. And I came across Okubo's book in the museum bookshop, and I was very inspired by it. So just a little background on this book. It was published in 1946 as the last of the camps were closing. And it's the first book-like account of the incarceration experience in an incarceree's own words, accompanied by Miné Okubo's drawing. She was an artist. Together with her narrative and illustrations, this book provided an unvarnished documentary record of the incarceree's life behind barbed wire. So today we're going to perform 3 of the 8 vignettes from her book. The first movement is called We Were Outnumbered. And it's based upon Miné's reference to the large numbers of spiders, mice, and rats that they experienced in the Tanforan Assembly Center. I took this as a deeper reference to the minority experience of the Japanese Americans who had become enemy aliens in their home country after the bombing of Pearl Harbor. So this first movement tries to capture the mocking, unwelcome nature of the post-Pearl Harbor Western United States, while its pseudo-Eastern European folk melody draws the unfortunate connection between the concentration camps in Europe and here in the United States. The second movement is titled The Wind Was Playing Havoc with the Fine Dust Particles, and it's based on the experience that is common to the accounts from all of the camps, the inescapable dust and the power of the wind that stirs it. I actually experienced this dust myself while walking around the Manzanar Museum and the camp remains, and I noticed that it piles up in the corners of every structure, covers everything in a fine layer, and enters the ears, nose, mouth, and eyes indiscriminately. I chose the pedal note D, you'll hear that note throughout the whole piece, to represent the dust. It saturates every available octave in the ensemble throughout the movement. Lastly, in the ultimate of ironies, young Japanese American men were called upon to die for the very country that had imprisoned them. The 7th movement is called A Memorial Service to Honor a Japanese American Soldier, and it was inspired by Private First Class Sadao Munemori of the 442nd Regimental Combat Team, who was killed in Italy on April 5th, 1945, at the age of 22, when he threw himself on a grenade to save his comrades. For his bravery, he was awarded a posthumous Medal of Honor. The movement is really a brief elegy in honor for his mother, Nawa Munemori. Performing today as first violinist is Akemi Liang, who's Susan Kamei's daughter. As violist, we have Daniel Jacobs. As cellist, Niall Taro. And as clarinetist, Alexander Tu. And I will be playing second violin. I have dedicated this work to Susan.
stirring and stunning. Artist Reiko Fuji honors the incarcerees by fusing photos of Issei declared to be enemy aliens and their families onto more than 2,000 pieces of hand-cut glass. She placed the glass pieces into 224 glass frames and tied the frames together with copper wire to create a life-size kimono. When the kimono is worn, even a slight movement causes the glass frames to strike against one another, creating the sound of wind chimes. Reiko was surprised to discover that during the Obon festival in Japan, the sound of wind chimes is used to call back ancestors. In her poem, Saga of a People, 16-year-old Nisei Ruth Tanaka from Dinuba, California, paid tribute to the Issei who left behind their ancestral land and who, despite the trials of their incarceration, remained optimistic for the future of their children. Ruth wrote the poem when she was a junior at Parker Valley High School in the Post-in-War Relocation Authority Center. In 1945, her poem won 4th prize out of 6,000 entries in a national literary contest sponsored by Scholastic magazine. Her poem was printed in her camp newspaper, the Poston Chronicle. Saga of a People. They have sprung from a race as old as time. Their backs are bent, their hands are wrinkled and brown, for they have toiled long years under a harsh master, life. Each passing year has left its mark upon their seamed and weathered faces that show as other faces do, a heart-deep yearning for a far-off land, a land of frail houses, stunted trees, a sacred volcano sleeping under a blanket of snow, traces of half-forgotten customs, a love for the life-giving sun, the freshening rain, the deep brown soil, still lingering in their hearts. Deep scars of pain and grief are etched on their worn faces, and yet their wise, twinkling eyes have looked on life and found it good. They have come to a fabulous land, while still dreaming the long thoughts of youth. They have sowed their seeds, weeded furrows, hoed a sun-parched land, watered and nursed it, harvested their plentiful crops, built a home and born their children, lest they forget the islands of their fathers. They have brought their little treasures with them. A miniature chest of drawers, lacquered dragon red, 2 dainty fans gay with dancing girls, a bamboo screen with a tiny arched bridge, and fragile lilies reflected in still water. Little dolls in bright kimonos of hand-painted silk, delicate teacups set on a polished tray. The seeds they sowed took root and sprouted, grew tall and straight with bursting pods, giving rich promise of fulfillment. So grew their black-haired children, straight and tall, drawing nourishment from the free soil of this, their native land. Their lives were like a deep, peaceful river, the old familiar customs of their ancestors mixing with the new, bewildering ones of their foster country, and slowly giving way before them, eating a breakfast of crisp bacon and scrambled eggs, instead of the hot soup and rice they had eaten in the home of their fathers, raising a huge paper carp on Boys' Day, awkwardly tying a silver star to the tip of the family Christmas tree, reluctantly going to a movie with the children, leaving behind a friendly game of go, and a cup of steaming green tea, driving to the beach and learning to roast hot dogs over a driftwood fire, and eating them with seed-covered rice cakes, passing on to their children the ceremonious courtesies that they had learned so long ago, and so they lived out their lives, guided by their sons and daughters, through this strange new world, slowly changing their deep-rooted ways. They have come to a new home, living in a single room, behind barbed wire. They know that peace has been shattered throughout the world by heavily laden bombs of terror and destruction. But they who love the deeply tranquil soil are stunned, bewildered by it all, by the cold wall with which their American friends have built around them. Now they are standing on the beloved soil of their Western mother, their wizened bodies huddled together against the bitter cold. Rising, they look toward the sea, vainly striving through the mists of the past to live again the dreams of their youth, thinking of a pleasant land where cherry blossoms warmed their hearts in spring, where placid goldfish lazily swam in sunny ponds, where all was contented and peaceful. They turn towards the red glow of a sinking sun, seeing through the distant hills, seeing over all the land, the rolling hills and valleys of their Western mother. Then they turn towards each other with eyes full, unashamedly, understandingly, for deep in their almond brown eyes, deep in the innermost depths of their souls, there shall always glow a hope that peace shall come one day, a peace forging with understanding and friendship, the islands of their long-lost youth and the far-stretching land of their children's birth.
Artist Roger Shimomura's earliest childhood memories are his family's life in the Miné Okubo Relocation Center. He combines American pop with his interpretation of ukiyo-e, the style of woodblock prints popular in Edo period Japan. He uses them to interrogate the connection between his family's incarceration experience during World War II and the way that other communities are treated today because of their identities and their appearances. He said about his painting, American Infamy No. 6, "Barbed wire fences and armed guard towers surrounded the camps, with soldiers ordered to shoot on sight anyone who attempted to leave. Official government rhetoric emphasized that this was for the protection of the Japanese Americans. But if these measures were meant to keep hostile people out, then why were the machine guns pointed inward at the incarcerees? And yet while their families were behind barbed wire, the volunteers and the draftees of the segregated all-Nisei army units faced enemy gunfire in some of the bloodiest battles of the European and Pacific theaters. Cal Matsumura from Los Angeles was one of these Nisei soldiers. He'd been incarcerated at age 21, first in the Pomona Assembly Center and later at Heart Mountain Relocation Center in Wyoming. He had been drafted into the 442nd Regimental Combat Team, assigned as a radio repairman for the 442's artillery attachment, the 522nd Artillery Battalion. On March 13, 1945, the 522nd was ordered to separate from the 100th and 442 to become a roving artillery battalion that was assigned to the 63rd Infantry Division as they began their final assault into Germany. On April 29, 1945, the 522nd entered a quote-unquote peaceful-looking town called Dachau. But as Cal and the other American soldiers entered the town, they soon smelled the decay of human flesh and realized the piles of naked corpses that surrounded them. The 522nd had come upon the Kaffering 4 Herlock subcamp of the Dachau slave labor camps, and these Japanese-American soldiers of the 522nd became the unlikely liberators of the survivors. As the 522nd entered Dachau, 17-year-old Sali Ganor lay dying. A European Jew, he was one of the 15,000 prisoners of the Dachau satellite labor camps who had been sent on the forced death march from Dachau to the Tyrol region of Austria. He knew that if he fell on this march, he would either be shot by the German guards or they're torn apart by their dogs. He had left on April 24th, and by May 1st, he, his father, and the other prisoners had marched over 37 miles. Of those 15,000 who had originally left, only 6,000 remained alive. Unusually, it started to snow heavily, and Sali had fallen to the ground outside of the forests of Warkirch in Germany. He thought he would die there, but because of the heavy snowfall, he remained hidden from the German soldiers. The next morning, on May 2nd, Sali awoke to find the 24-year-old Cal standing over him, holding out a chocolate bar as he lifted him from the verge of death out of that snowbank. 47 years later, in 1992, the 64-year-old Saul would be reunited in Israel with his savior, then 71-year-old Cal. For many years, the Nisei soldiers' role in the liberation of Dachau was classified, but today is celebrated as one of their many achievements that they took part in during the war. Let us carry forward the knowledge and the stories of the bravery and valor of all the Nikkei who not only fought the Axis enemies, but the enemies of prejudice and discrimination everywhere.
Misako Mayumi, known as Mickey, was the third of 7 children born to Kyoji and Tamio Mayumi. The family farmed fruit and vegetable crops in Chula Vista, California. At age 15, she was incarcerated with her family at the Santa Anita Assembly Center and later at the Poston Relocation Center. As a student at Parker Valley High School in Poston 3, Mickey was active in the Girl Scouts, the Junior League, the basketball team, the high school newspaper, and the Young Buddhist Association. Mickey delivered the salutatorian address on May 31, 1945, entitled Remembrance at the Parker Valley High School commencement ceremony. Commencement promises to be the beginning of a bigger life, a life which holds greater responsibilities, new experiences, and a deeper significance in living. It is a time when mixed emotions rule each graduate as his head is held high with pride or bowed in serious contemplation of the future, as his eyes grow misty with tears of gladness or dim with a questioning, unresolved fear for the years to come. Can we ever forget our first year at Poston? Classes were held in unimpressive black tar-papered barracks. The rooms were crowded with students, but empty of the barest essentials of a school. We will always remember our first assembly, our first student body election, the first commencement exercises of Poston 3. A hastily constructed outdoor stage was the setting of that great event. The 123 graduating members did not wear the traditional cap and gown. We see that fateful storm in August, which destroyed half of the constructed adobe buildings. We hear the urgent call for volunteers to help complete our school. And we remember the quick response of students, teachers, and parents. Those willing, determined workers can justly say, "We helped build this, our school." We see rows of adobe buildings, some of them still incomplete. Yes, indeed, we know that in the year 1943 to 1944 holds many memorable events. That was the year the construction of the auditorium began. Old Glory was first raised to the sky. Our first campus carnival was held, and our first Campus Echoes was published. And we mustn't forget that during that year, our school received Arizona's accreditation, and our school was officially named Parker Valley High School. The commencement exercises of the class of 1944 were held here in this auditorium. We remember that as we looked up at the portion of the ceiling, we saw the stars twinkling at us from above. We remember those 98 graduates as they, clad in caps and gowns, marched down the aisles with faces suddenly serious. In reminiscing about our final year at Parker Valley High School, we can see the great accomplishments in leadership, scholarship, and citizenship. The prom, our senior ball, our class play, our senior day, and our banquet were the result of initiative, determination, and diligence. 2.5 years ago, we, the members of the class of 1945, were attending schools in 25 communities along the Pacific coast. Tonight, we are gathered here as one class. We represent such towns as Los Angeles, Reedley, Visalia, Santa Barbara, Monterey, and San Diego. As a result of the years we spent together, a deep understanding of one another has grown, and lasting friendships have been formed. With the passing of the summer and the winter of 1945, each of us will find himself in his former hometown, or maybe in an entirely new community. We may be in Chicago or New York, Milwaukee or Kansas City, in San Diego or any other city. Wherever we are, we may encounter hardships and misunderstandings. As we try to solve our difficulties, our lives may become turmoil. During trying times such as these, we will recall, happiness was attained only through real understanding between one another.
Jerry Takigawa's collage, Yes, Yes, refers to the U.S. government's disastrous attempt to determine in one questionnaire which incarcerees were sufficiently loyal to be granted clearance to leave the camps, as well as which draft-age Nisei males were sufficiently loyal to serve in the military. Two questions in particular, number 27 and number 28 of the poorly drafted and ill-conceived loyalty questionnaire created intense divisions among the incarcerees as they sought to decide how to answer and second-guess the government's interpretation of their answers. Even those who answered yes, yes to questions 27 and 28 were nevertheless distrustful of the government's intentions. Those who answered no, no suffered enduring consequences that have rippled through the generations of their families today. No matter the answers, the loyalty questionnaire epitomized the rationale behind the incarceration that being of the race of an enemy by definition made you the enemy. Sada Hasegawa Murayama was an English-speaking Issei from San Francisco, California, incarcerated age 41 at the Tule Lake and Jerome relocation centers. Her poem, Loyalty, was printed in the Tulean Dispatch on May 27, 1943. Loyalty. I am a citizen. Let no slander slur my status. In the other war, I stood with countless others side by side to fight the foe. My arm was just as strong. My blood fell as bright as theirs in the defense of a new world more precious far than any tie of land or race. If in this Holocaust it be decreed my loyalty be tested by submission, what is the difference if the end be same? My reason may be tested, not my heart. Oh, what is loyalty if it be something that can bend with every wind? Steadfast I stand. Staunchly I plant the stars and stripes before my barracks door, crying defiance to all wavering hearts. I am a citizen. I can take the bad with good. As a social activist, Lucien Kubo thinks of her art as philosophical, historical, and personal narratives to engage the viewer, to create a dialogue, and to pause for thought and possible action. In Japanese American concentration camp, Kubo has assembled materials that include an aerial view of the Topaz, Utah concentration camp, original barrack photos, and a photograph by Dorothea Lange of two of the Mochita children waiting to board a bus to take their family to the Tanforan Assembly Center. Kubo describes this assemblage, Never Again Is Now, as a reminder that we must learn from past injustices, citing patterns of discrimination and family separation starting with the 1882 Chinese Exclusion Act, to the travel ban and other policies against persons from Muslim countries since the 9/11 attacks, and to the detention of immigrants from Mexico, Central and South American countries at our southern border. The voices of the Issei and Nisei who experienced the wartime incarceration are falling silent with the passage of time. It is up to their descendants, the Sansei, Yonsei, Gosei, and even Ryokusei, and future generations, along with their allies, to know their stories and to hold our government accountable under the Constitution. As Tule Lake incarceree Joe Matsuzawa told his granddaughter Kara, anyone can be incarcerated. Never forget this event. It could happen to you too.
You may know what a daruma is, but perhaps you might not know the story behind it. It's said that a Buddhist priest, known as Daruma, meditated so much that his arms and his legs withered away. He became a symbol of dedication to goal and resilience through adversity, always bouncing back up after a fall. From this legend has come the custom of creating rounded papier-mâché figures without eyes. When someone receives a daruma, they make a wish and paint in one eye, a representation of hope. When their goal is achieved, they paint in the other eye, a representation of gaman and resilience. Christine Aona's Daruma of Resilience has one eye painted, representing that a wish has been made. It's covered with text, copies of testimonies from camp survivors, definitions of gaman, resilience, and perseverance, copies of family letters, and other printed material depicting acts of resilience throughout history. Visitors to her work are encouraged to write their wishes and hopes on yellow stick-it notes that will be added to the sculpture. As this program is part of this year's Day of Remembrance observances, I thought it would be appropriate to close with this image as we remember and carry forward the incarceree stories, their sacrifices, their hopes, and wishes for us as their descendants and friends, and our own hopes and wishes that we can make our country a more perfect union and our world a better place, thanks to their example. You might know the Japanese phrase, okagasama de. Thanks. Thanks to you for what I am. Thanks to each of you here today and those who have joined us virtually. Okagasama de, and thank you. I hope you will join me in a round of applause for our performers and readers today. Patty Honda Ara, Chad Cannon, Gail Enns, Daniel Jacobs, Bronson Kamei, Tracy Kato-Kiriyama, Akemi Liang, Niall Taro, Alexander Tu, and Matthew Wesley. Please join me. In all of the programs that I've gotten to do since the launch of the book, I never really had a chance to give thanks to a number of people for whom I'm indebted for the opportunity to be able to be part of this incarceration story. And first, to thank Ann Burroughs and the entire team here at JANM for being not only the host of this event, but other events connected to my book, and also to the USC Shinzo Into Center. Sorry that Duncan Williams was under the weather and could not be here today, but to the Ito Center team, Shanna Takushi. Thanks so much. I hope she's watching virtually. My literary agent, Kathleen Anderson, for whom I'm indebted for the opportunity to have the book with Simon & Schuster, and to Simon & Schuster as a mainstream publisher that was very committed to taking the story of the incarcerees, and especially to the young adult audience, so that this book could be used as a teaching reference and as a resource. The materials came about from the opportunity I had to teach a class that I continue to teach at USC. And so I'm grateful to my students and past students, which includes Matt, for the work that they've done that have helped me to develop the materials. and to a number of family and friends that are here today, and those who we sadly miss, which include my parents, my dad, for whom I had the honor of getting to serve in the redress campaign with him. He was an original leader of the museum here. My mother, who just passed away and unfortunately didn't live to see this event, but was very happy to know that we had so many family members to be participating. And now we'd like to invite you, those of you that are here, those of you who are online, you're missing out on musubi, fugetsudo manju, and mari mix snacks, and grateful to Mari Fawcett and the Fawcett family for contributing the Mari Mix to our reception. And so with that, thank you very much for being part of this Day of Remembrance event, and please travel safely and stay safe. Thank you.
Can you join me in a round of applause for Susan Kamei? As Susan mentioned, thank you everyone for being here today. We will be selling the book right outside in the lobby, and Susan will be signing books as well. So please make sure you get your hands on a copy if you haven't already. If you are online, we sell them through the JANM bookstore online as well. So please definitely continue to read and share this story. And if you're around in the LA area, please come back next week as well for the Day of Remembrance, Los Angeles Day of Remembrance Committee's celebration on February 18th as well, to continue to gather and remember these stories. So with that, thank you so much. Please explore the museum, explore Little Tokyo, and have a really great and safe afternoon. Thank you, everyone.